Hey everyone, I hope that you're doing well. I just wanted to check in. Sorry, I'm a little delayed in reading the discussions for Module 2.1, but I'm just about done and I just wanted to leave some comments here. I think in this video, I'll be a little bit more, I guess I'll say fun in terms of the subject matter and what I'm going to talk about. I'm also going to add a post to the discussion board. So if you haven't yet completed all of your responses, or if you just want to jump in and take a look at that, please do. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Specifically, I'm thinking about the way that Baumgartner approaches interpretation and how different ways of looking at the same thing can both be true at the same time, even though that may appear contradictory. So again, these are the issues that historians have to deal with. I appreciate all of the great questions that you asked one another and your conversations about Baumgartner's methodologies and her approaches to this history of enslaved people who escaped to Mexico. Before I jump into what I wanted to say, I just wanted to remind you that this week is the first time you'll be completing a blog post. Several of you have already given me your Medium usernames. So remember, there's a spreadsheet where you add those after you've created your Medium account. By giving me your username, I will be able to give you permission to be a writer on our course Medium publication. So that's how you'll be able to post your blogs to our course Medium site. And that's how you'll be able to find one another's posts so that you can comment on each other's work. If any of that sounds unfamiliar, or if you have questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to help. All right, so a few of you commented on the kind of massive undertaking that it is to write history like Baumgartner has completed here. And her work, I mean, it is really, really good. It's really approachable for not just historians and academics, but also for the general public. And that's something that many of us historians can't quite capture. We tend to write for each other more than for the general public, for better or worse. And that's another conversation we can have. But when doing a borderlands history, just in addition to the monumental task of writing a book, doing archival research, understanding the historiography of the topic that you've chosen to write about so that you can fit your ideas and interpretations into what has already been written and explain either a gap in that historiography or a new interpretation or whatever it might be. You have to do that for at least 2 different nations when you're doing borderlands kind of work. For my book that's coming out, I promise, I hope, or at least I hope I won't be too insufferable about that. But my book coming out this year, I visited at least 15 or 16 different archives at the national levels, both in the United States and in Mexico, so Washington, D.C., Mexico City. I went to Santa Fe, I went to Chihuahua City, I went to Deming, I went to Columbus, I went to Paloma, so on and on and on. There are all of these different places that historians have to go to try to chase the stories that they are wanting to tell, especially the primary sources. And historians of the border have to do that work in a couple of different languages. So mine is Spanish and English, so is Baumgartner's. And I think I mentioned this before, but I know her personally. I met her at the SRE Foreign Relations Archive in Mexico City back in 2012 when I was doing research on what was then my dissertation, now my book. And I met her doing the same thing, research in the Foreign Relations Archive. So, and I've worked with her on a couple of other symposia and projects. So I have a lot of respect for her just as a person, but also as a scholar. But sometimes just doing that work, it sounds daunting. So I just wanted to sort of underscore why she said that completing this book was the hardest thing she's ever done. But then also, it can be fun. Um, I like working in archives. I like going to see new and different places. I like trying to imagine myself in the shoes of the historical figures that I've been studying, and so that's part of the value and what makes it worthwhile for me personally. Um, Also, some of the archives can be pretty interesting. So that's where I wanted to end this up, talking about the Archivo General de la Nación, the AGN, or the National Archive in Mexico City. It's in an old penitentiary. So it was the penitentiary where Pancho Villa, just to name one, political prisoner, was held during the Mexican Revolution. But then post-revolution, people like David Alfaro Siqueiros, who was one of the big three Mexican muralists and painters. He was imprisoned there, and it was in the early 80s that the penitentiary was converted into the National Archives. So when I was doing work there the first time I went in 2012, they had all of the papers in the jail cells. So it was set up like a panopticon, like you read about from Jeremy Bentham, and there were all of these different wings generating or emanating out of the central point where the main guard tower would have been. That wasn't there anymore. The cell bars weren't there anymore, but the cells were still clearly had been jail cells, and those were the rooms where they kept the archival papers. And so the reading room would be kind of in the main hall in one of those wings where all the jail cells were off to the sides. And you would sit and wait for the archivist to go up into the cells, bring down the boxes, and bring them to your table. You can kind of watch all of this happen. It was a really unique and interesting experience. Since then, I think now I don't remember for sure, 2017-ish, they started building a more modern facility to house the archival materials that has better climate control so that it can preserve the papers more effectively. They've moved all of the archival materials out of the jail cells, or what were formerly jail cells, and into this new building that's on the same lot as the penitentiary. But the reading rooms are still there, so you can still go to those same reading rooms that I was describing. You can go out back and see the historical marker that shows where President Francisco Madero and his vice president, Pino Suarez, were assassinated during the revolution. That happened just outside the penitentiary, and again, now the National Archive. So often these places have their own unique and kind of fun histories. That's a dark history, I mean, if we're being honest, but it was just so unexpected, I think, to have an archive there. So anyway, I will leave things there. Like I said, I'm going to post on the discussion board something about methodology and approach. I look forward to continuing that conversation just a little bit further, and I look forward to reading your blog posts this week.